It was just one of the root races. That's in the Voyager stuff. But that means that the time period that we called Atlantis, that time cycle of our planet's history, is now beginning to activate and come back in to our templates in this strand. We're starting to see it. We're starting to walk it in our hologram. We see as physically manifest, what is exactly one-dimensional band below the station of consciousness. So, Lanny and Karma being strand 3. We are moving into strand 4 activation, which will get us in our consciousness into D4. So we will begin to see D3 and what holographic thought forms were left in that field as physically manifest. We are beginning to see the thought field that we left when we were in Atlantis. We're watching it now when you see the scientists doing the cloning stuff, putting stuff together that doesn't belong, like human ears on the backs of mice, all this kind of stuff. We are also recycling the Atlantean karma drama that was going down with the Wesedex. The part we're recycling, if you could look at time, it's all happening at once, and sometimes there's overlays where they're like wave fields that bleed through each other and then they line up temporarily. So you get several stacks of different time periods where the imprint bleeds all the way through all of them. Right now, we're beginning the karmic return on the Stargate cycle of 22,326 BC, when we were invaded by the Wesedek races and the Nibiruan races, and the Iani were massacred. It was called the Iani Massacre. Happened in Lemuria, and Lemuria and Atlantis were concurrent with each other. There was an Atlantean invasion, but they took the Lemurian islands as well. Now we have a choice again. We can use what we know to change that overlay that's coming, or the underlay that's coming up. It's coming up through our mass radial body and through the planetary grid, so it's coming. What we're learning now is how to take charge of it in a loving way, but in an intelligent way. It isn't intelligent anymore with the drama that we're in to surrender your power to channel. I'm not against channels, but however, do you know that when you're channeling, something else is merging with your DNA template and your shields? The only thing that can channel through you that will not cause harm to your shields is your own soul, oversoul, avatar, rishi, or ascendant master level. Anybody else has a different mathematical coding, and as soon as they come into your body, they change the mathematical coding in your template. Now, even if they're nice, and somebody out there wants to channel through you in contact, you have to be crazy or unaware to let them do that. What's interesting is there are a lot of beings in the middle dimensional fields that don't understand Templar mechanics either. Not all of them mean to cause harm. They'll come in and channel and not realize they're doing damage to the templates of the person they're with and to their own. Then you have the ones that are like the Wesedex and the Pleiadians, which are part of the Pleiadian Nibiruan Anunnaki crew from Phantom Matrix. Whole bunch of them. Just about every voice that's channeled on the planet right now, even the angels, especially the archangels. These guys are coming from the Wesedek and the Phantom Matrix, and they're fusing their templates into the DNA and scalar shields of people so they can body possess them. And now they're getting their big boost. They're getting the flaming blue sword of death coming through. So just when you see these things going around, you have a choice. There's a denial factor that a lot of people don't want to hear that because it's more fun. I can go talk to my angels. They don't really care if their angels are actually angels, because it feels good to talk to somebody, because they feel lonesome and they feel special now that somebody from someplace else that nobody else can see is actually talking to them. Aim higher, and try to encourage people that you see that are doing that to aim higher. Teach them about their Christos self. The first person you want to contact is you. Once you do that, the universe is open, because once you have what's called a dedicated line, which is your Maharic seal and your flame bodies now, you can talk to anything. You can talk to Wesedex and they can't touch you. It's really funny when the other day when the Archangel Michael, even using his little archetypal form, which is not what he looks like, it's just an image he picked up that he knew humans, would respond to. He's not a he; it's a collective of beetle people. I mean, yeah. And it's not just Archangel Michael. There's a whole bunch of them that are all connected. There's the Katumi group. There's the all those ascended masters. We are the masters groups. That whole attitude is a Wesedek attitude. The people who were working and channeling, working with these people and channeling them don't know this. They were misled too. But sometimes they were misled because they were them too. You never know. It's very hard to tell whether the channel was actually victimized or whether the channel came in to an incarnation in order to victimize other people. You know, it's hard to tell. But if you can realize that all these things that we call like people are into in all the movements out there, the old-fashioned movements with mediumship and all that, the newfangled movements which involve channeling, which is the same thing as mediumship. You know, it really is. You have conscious channeling, which is a little bit better because at least it's not fully fusing with your lower two strands. It's just fusing with the higher ones in strand 3. Right? There's all sorts of wacky stuff with tarot cards and astrology readings and all of these wonderful psychic arts and all that kind of stuff. And the people who are doing them haven't a clue about dimensional structure, about the structure or anatomy of the universe, their bodies, any of that other thing. If you go into psychics to tell you what's up, you know enough now to be a better psychic than anybody you're going to talk to. You need to bring the power home again. I call it Potterization of personal power. You know the Harry Potter thing? My daughter loves this stuff. Oh, Harry Potter, everything is Harry Potter. I was going crazy for a while when we came up with the words because she'd start, like, as soon as I wake up in the morning, telling me all about the latest drama in the Harry Potter book she was reading. It's like, please don't Potterize me yet. Let me wake up first. Well, we Potterize ourselves so often. Every time we run to a medium to give a reading for us. All right? Now, it's different. It's very different if you have friends and you know you're both psychic. You both know that. And say, I could appreciate a little clarity. What's your opinion? If we look at it as opinion, but too often people run to psychics just like they run to doctors for a pill because they're disempowering themselves. They're saying, somebody fix my life. I don't have what it takes to find this information. Every time you Potterize your power, well, what is? You're turning your spiritual life and your power into a fiction novel. All right? You're literally creating your power as fiction. Your spiritual connection is fictitious, as long as you keep running to things. Personally, I haven't looked at a horoscope in years. Horoscopes will tell you one thing. They will tell you subtle influences, what are called subtle mutable influences. They are slight scalar wave pickups that you get by coming through into a planetary system that do imprint your scalar shield on what's called the mutable level. Now, as soon as you begin activating flame codes and running the D12 frequency, all that changes unless you want to keep telling yourself it's important and keep yourself stuck there. There's a lot of people who run around saying, oh, I can't do this because this is in retrograde today, and I can't do this. This is Potterization of power. Now, there's nothing wrong with playing with astrology if you can recognize it as a game, just like when we play tarot cards. They're a focus for the power that's really inside. But when we give that star chart or those tarot cards or any of that thing the power to tell us what it's about, we're losing track of what's going on. They are just something to focus our own inner power on. It's important because especially now, I mean, the only persons who might listen to you at this point, if you wanted to talk about this stuff that aren't part of these groups, are somebody who's doing psychic stuff or metaphysical stuff. Right now, they're about the most dangerous people on the planet because they're doing it without knowing their anatomy, their dimensional structure, or their Maharic seal. Now, I've had a few, it's really interesting. I've met very many psychics who were told, I'm terrible. Guess who? Well, Katumi did one, Al Morier did another. These were what they were channeling. Of course these guys are going to say I'm terrible. I'm busting their game. I'm part of a team here that's exposing their lies and showing people how to not get suckered in and Metatronicked. So you go to a psychic. How do you know who that psychic's in communication with? How do you know somebody, even if she doesn't think anybody's guiding her, how do you know that she knows for sure? If she doesn't know her anatomy, she doesn't know her Maharic seal. I mean, think about it. I'm going to go into, I'm going to ask us to go into the first things. You'll probably have to wake you up when you get done, because I know it's late already and you're probably tired, and these are a bit long. If you fall asleep, it's okay. All right? We'll run you through them. Now, these are things that you'll get more and more benefit with when you do them yourselves at home. We'll have tapes made of them as soon as possible, but you can, put them on your own tapes for personal use if you can get to it before we do, if you want to use them. But I just want to qualify these one more time and say I was kind of very amazed at the sophistication of the techniques. It's jumped hugely in sophistication since we've been on this trip, which means the drama has jumped in sophistication. It means we're getting prepared for something bigger than they were originally preparing us for. But that's kind of good, too, if you like adventure. We could look at it as like run a Voyager's adventure. So I'm going to, I don't think, yeah, I'm all right. I don't need to say anything more. I'm going to be working tonight on the map so we can see where the arcs come down and all that jazz. And I will try to have the nice, pretty words typeset and pasted up on these. And as long as the secretarial department and me have a harmonious time relationship, we'll do all right. Tomorrow we're going to cover a lot of heavy stuff. Heavy meaning saturated with information. I wouldn't doubt it. As soon as I sit down and try to do some of this stuff to get caught up, they're probably going to give me the next piece of the new stuff that I don't know about yet for tomorrow. But I'm going to say good night now, so I don't have to get back up here and wake you up again and get you out of that space. I'll just say good night. Thanks.
Okay. Do you want to do it lights off or what? Okay.
Well, they just wanted, so they could turn on their
Everybody ready then? Comfortable?
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, I'll start my
Okay.
recorder and turn off the light, okay?
Okay. Okay, usual approach. Make sure you're sitting comfortably. Start to regulate your breathing. Try and reduce the breathing rhythm. And just begin to relax. And as you're regulating your breathing and making sure your body's comfortable and as relaxed as you can make it be, call to mind the image of your silver sanctum, pale silver blue Akasha capsule. And imagine an image of the silver sanctum centered within the Amareya egg, within the azurite flame and azurite crystal at the azure point in the base of the thymus gland. Inhale Maharic frequency up to the azure and directly into your silver sanctum capsule, stationed within the Amareya egg. And smoothly exhale Maharic current into your silver sanctum, using the out-breath to expand the silver sanctum capsule and everything around it, the egg, the flame, and the crystal, through and outside of the physical and etheric bodies, and into the auric field several feet out from the body. Take 3 more deep inhales and exhale breaths, expanding the silver sanctum increasingly on each breath, completing the expansion outward into the auric field, completely surrounding the physical and etheric bodies several feet out on all sides. As you move through the breaths, become as aware as you can of the feeling of yourself sitting calmly and peacefully within the sacred space of your silver sanctum. Just breathe slowly and deeply for a few moments, feeling as much of your internal Christos power base as you're able, as a living wave of consciousness that is now alive and awakened within you. Relax your physical facial muscles into the posture of a relaxed, peaceful, contented smile. Move the focus of your attention to the Iombi point just below the second chakra at the navel. Imagine that you can see, trapped there, distorted density 1 elemental and figment attachment power centers. Imagine the attachment power centers as small, shiny black spheres, resembling polished coal, that orbit around what appears to be a central dark sun. This is the dark fallen sun of the song. And this appears within the central vertical current at the Iombi point as a rotating, dull grey black sphere, resembling metallic iron. It's about the size of a golf ball that is surrounded by a radiant but muddy-looking yellow-orange static aura, approximately 1 inch thick. The dark sun around which the attachment power centers orbit is the D1.75 heart of Anubis, 4th black heart of Metatron implant, which draws in and holds attachment within the density 1 shadow body. Breathe calmly and slowly while observing or imagining this density 1 shadow solar system that is formed by the density 1 metallic iron Anubis black heart implant and the carbon crystal cores of the reversed matrix density 1 attachment shields. Take 2 or 3 inhale, exhale Maharic breaths, exhaling Maharic current upward to form a pale silver Maharic sphere within the 4th heart chakra. As you do these breaths, place your right palm over the E Ombi point just below the navel. And take an additional breath, drawing Maharic frequency into the Maharic sphere that you're forming from the heart chakra upward and into the Azare point at the base of the thymus. Exhale Maharic current into the Amaraya egg at the center of the Azurite flame within the crystal throne of power. Take another Maharic breath up and into the Maharic sphere in the Azure Amaraya egg. Then exhale forcefully using the breath to push the Maharic sphere all the way down from the Azure into the heart chakra, then down the right arm and through the right palm, pushing the Azure coded Maharic sphere directly through the Eombi point and into the center of the Dark Sun Metatronic Iron Heart implant. Take 2 more deep in-breaths and forceful exhales, pushing the frequency into the dark sun. Now bring your attention to the dark sun implant and spend a few seconds developing a clear mental intention based on the statement, "We co-create attachment healing now." And whilst you're doing that, I will cover the pronunciation of the 5-letter language command that you're going to use in a moment. Dur et a, Isa nurun a, ta a de. Dur et a, Isa nurun a, ta a de. Dur et e, Isa nurun e, ta a e de. This LTR grid in the ancient Elohai Elohim Anahazi language uses the language of the nodus to call upon the portions of your personal consciousness that exist in the form of the organic base 12 divine blueprint nodus consciousness of the D123 nodes within your density 1 telluric shield. The LTR tones activate the node flame and its base 12 ray in full Maharic coding to assist you in co-creative healing. Upon contact with the node tone command and the Azure-coded Maharic current, imagine that the dark sun implant momentarily shudders, wobbles, and stops rotation. So we'll go back a step quickly. With your mental attention on the dark sun implant, hold your clear mental attention, we co-create attachment healing now, and repeat out loud the following. Duret e. Isa. Nuron e. Ta'a e de. Imagine that the dark sun implant shudders, wobbles, and stops rotation. As the dark sun momentarily ceases to rotate, imagine that the attachment's small black carbon crystal sphere shield cores to begin dropping downward out of their orbit around the dark sun implant. Inhale Maharic current upward to chakra 2 at the navel, and exhale forcefully, using the breath to activate your density 1 telluric shield. Imagine that your shield pops out from its chakra 2 core orange seed crystal seal, which appears as a small grape-sized orange crystal within your central vertical current. Imagine that your telluric shield extends outward on a horizontal plane from chakra 2. Imagine your shield extending outward from your body at the navel area level to form a 3-foot rotating disc of pale pink, pale peach, and pale yellow light, surrounded by a pale silver Maharic aura. Now, just wait a moment. Inhale Maharic current upward and into the orange seed crystal seal at chakra 2, which is in the center of your telluric shield, within the central vertical current. As you pull this breath, imagine that the inhale breath is drawing all of the freed shiny black spheres of the attachment's core carbon crystals into the chakra 2 orange seed crystal. And further, you will imagine that the orange sphere of the chakra 2 orange seed crystal seal momentarily turns a deep, dark, murky orange-brown hue as the seed seal collects the freed miasmic attachment carbon core crystal seals. Okay, so draw the breath now. Imagine the breath is drawing all the freed shiny black spheres into chakra 2 orange seed crystal seal. And notice the orange sphere and the seed crystal seal momentarily turning a deep, dark, murky orange brown. Allow the breath to leave you easily. Inhale further Maharic frequency into the chakra 2 orange seed crystal seal and imagine the image of your small pale silver blue Eros flame at the Iumbi point just below the navel. Push the breath into, the out-breath into chakra 2 orange seed crystal seal while imagining the pale silver blue Eros flame flaring upward, its top point gently piercing the orange seed crystal seal at chakra 2. Inhale a long, slow, gentle Maharic breath up the pale silver blue Eros flame and into the murky orange sphere. Exhale Maharic current gently into the seed seal murky orange sphere. Imagine that the small shiny black miasmic attachment crystal spheres all simultaneously pop, transmuting into tiny radiant sparks of pale silver blue Eros energy that quickly cool down to form tiny pale silver blue smooth celestite crystal spheres. And as the celestite crystal spheres form, the color of the chakra 2 seed crystal seal clears and glows radiant orange, returning to its natural D2 orange wavelength color frequency. If you want to repeat the inhale and the exhale, you may. Breathe into the murky orange sphere. The small shiny black miasmic attachment spheres pop, transmute into tiny radiant sparks of pale silver blue Eros energy. They quickly cool down and form tiny pale silver blue smooth celestite crystal spheres. And with your mental attention on the chakra 2 spiraling vortex, place your left palm over the chakra 2 front spiral at the navel. And then draw Maharic frequency up and into the chakra 2 seed crystal seal. Gently exhale the Maharic frequency horizontally, running a thick stream of pale silver Maharic current simultaneously backward and forward through and out of the front and rear chakra 2 spirals. As you exhale, imagine the tiny celestite crystal spheres containing the shields of the previous attachments are magnetically drawn into your left palm that is covering the front of chakra 2. You repeat the breaths in and out, whilst imagining that the pale silver blue sparks of Eros energy gently spiral outward from the rear spiral of chakra 2 to disperse as a pale silver blue glittering cloud within your auric field about 1 foot out behind the physical body. Just breathe easy for a few moments while imagining that your telluric shield disc automatically contracts back into the chakra 2 orange seed crystal seal within the central vertical current behind the navel as the last celestite crystals draw into your left palm. Now close your left hand around the invisible celestite crystals. Then lift your hand upward and a little bit away from your body, as if you're about to let a butterfly fly free from your left hand. Now slowly open your left hand with the palm facing upward and imagine that ghost-like beings made of pale silver blue Eros light joyfully fly free from your left hand. As the freed elementals and figments return to their natural Christic evolutionary path, issuing a joyful telepathic thank you to you for loving them enough to set them free. Before disengaging your attention, issue your own telepathic thank you to your own D12 Christos avatar self, the nodus consciousness of the rays, and the one God source of all creation, for this blessed opportunity to co-create healing through the frequencies and consciousness of divine Christic love. Now once again, call to mind the image of your silver sanctum, pale silver blue Akasha capsule, and imagine an image of the silver sanctum centered within the Amareya egg, within the azurite flame and azurite crystal at the azure point in the base of the thymus gland. Inhale Maharic frequency up into the azure and directly into your silver sanctum capsule stationed within the Amareya egg. And exhale Maharic frequency into your silver sanctum, using the exhale breath to expand the sanctum capsule and everything around it, egg, flame and crystal, through and outside of the physical and etheric bodies and into the auric field several feet out from the body. Take 3 more breaths and further expand the silver sanctum to complete its expansion outward into the auric field, completely surrounding the physical and etheric bodies several feet out on all sides. And once again feel yourself sitting calmly and peacefully within the sacred space of your silver sanctum. And bring your attention to the Iombi point just below the navel and call to mind the image of the dark fallen sun, the D1.75 heart of Anubis, 4th black heart of Metatron implant. The density 1 dark sun appears within the central vertical current at the Iombi point as a rotating, dull grey-black sphere resembling metallic iron about the size of a golf ball, surrounded by radiant, muddy-looking yellow-orange static material approximately 1 inch thick. Now, imagine that you can see a Metatronic feeding cord, a narrow pipe or hose-like structure that extends out to the rear of the body on a horizontal plane from the inside of the Iombi point, dark sun, to a position in your auric field just behind your left hip, about 6 to 8 inches beyond the physical body. The density 1 shadow body links to the organic density 1 physical and etheric bodies via the 4th black heart implant within the etheric body and shadow body Iombi points. The density 1 shadow body stands behind and out to the left with its back to the physical body on the DNA strand 2 node line. Now, imagine that you follow the Metatronic cord to its connection point within the shadow body subfield, where the horizontally extending cord connects to the shadow body via a small, dull grey-black iron core crystal sphere, approximately the size of a large marble. In your mind's eye, imagine that you are mentally focusing upon the small shadow body iron core crystal behind you in your auric field. Inhale, pale silver Maharic frequency up from Earth's core to the Iumbi point in your physical etheric bodies, while calling to mind the image of the small pale silver blue Eros flame stationed at the Iumbi point. Forcefully exhale Maharic frequency into the Eros flame center at the Iumbi point. Imagine that the flame flares, then expands with the exhale breath, forming a secondary silver sanctum Akasha capsule replica within the boundaries of the primary Eros flame Akasha capsule surrounding you. Now return your attention to the physical etheric Iumbi point. Inhale Maharic frequency into the physical etheric Iumbi point, and then forcefully exhale the frequency through the Iumbi point and out into the silver sanctum Akasha capsule replica in your auric field. Take another deep breath, drawing more Maharic frequency, this time imagining that the silver sanctum replica rapidly contracts with the inhale, drawing back into the physical etheric Iumbi point to become a tiny pale silver blue Eros flame replica within the Iumbi point. Just draw one more in-breath, ensuring all of the replica is drawn in. Then exhale strongly while imagining that the tiny Eros flame replica enters the Metatronic feeding cord pipeline at the physical etheric Iumbi point, then travels on the exhale breath horizontally across the Metatronic cord and directly into the dull grey-black iron core crystal. Now, with the pale silver blue Eros flame replica stationed in the dark sun iron core crystal implant of the shadow body, inhale Maharic current up from the earth's core through your physical body, central vertical current to the heart center. Exhale the current from the heart center upward and out the top of your head to chakra 14, 36 inches above the head. While imagining a small marble-sized pale yellow sphere of light, small marble-sized pale yellow sphere of light, the pale golden capstone node, D14 pale gold flame core crystal within the center of the 14th chakra. So draw a breath, imagining the small marble-sized pale yellow sphere of light at D14 pale gold flame core crystal within the center of the 14th chakra, and then use a forceful exhale to push the pale golden capstone node downward from the 14th chakra to the physical etheric Iumbi point below the navel. Inhale a two-point abdominal Maharic breath, simultaneously drawing D12 pale silver Maharic current upward from the earth's core to the Iumbi meeting point, while drawing pale gold D14 current downward from chakra 14 to meet the Maharic current within the Iumbi. Imagine that these currents combine within the Iumbi to form a small, sparkling, pale gold-silver sphere, the gold and silver one in the Iumbi point. And continue to breathe that way. We've been asked to read a note to you twice at this point, so just continue to breathe frequency in, and just very gently, continue to combine the frequencies there. The gold and the silver sphere. The gold and silver one current is the Orishik capstone Mane Nodus consciousness of the D14 Ra, antimatter gaseous primal light field, merged with the Christic capstone Manu Nodus consciousness of the D12 Ma'a divine blueprint pre-matter liquid light field. Together, the 144 fire letters of the Ma'a Nodus and the 168 fire letters of the Ra Nodus form the 312 fire letters of what is called the sacred secret song, or the Ra Ma'a current, which is the primal capstone ray of transmutation through which all things made of light, such as frozen light matter units, are returned to their organic pre-manifestation state of primal sound vibration for return to the Kundalini primal sound fields through direct de-manifestation. We repeat, the gold and silver one current is the Rishik capstone Mane Nodus consciousness of the D14 Ra antimatter gaseous primal light field merged with the Christic capstone Manu Nodus consciousness of the D12 Ma'a divine blueprint pre-matter liquid light field. Together, the 144 fire letters of the Ma'a Nodus and the 168 fire letters of the Ra Nodus form the 312 fire letters of what is called the sacred secret song, or the Ra Ma'a current, which is the primal capstone ray of transmutation through which all things made of light are returned to their organic pre-manifestation state of primal sound vibration for return to the Kundalini primal sound fields through direct demanifestation. With the pale golden silver one sphere stationed within the physical etheric Iombi point, take a deep, single point Maharic breath, drawing Maharic current into the center of the golden silver one sphere. Exhale slowly and deeply, while imagining the gold and silver one sphere passing into and through the Metatronic cord, traveling with the exhale breath into the center of the small Eros flame replica that is waiting at the center of the dull gray-black iron core crystal dark sun implant in shadow body Iombi point. When you've completed that breath, just breathe easy. And imagine that the gold and silver one sphere begins to automatically expand within the pale silver blue Eros flame replica. Pushed from within by the expanding gold and silver one sphere, imagine that the Eros flame replica is expanding outward from the dark sun implant, through and beyond the boundaries of the shadow body, until the Eros flame replica has formed a silver sanctum Akasha capsule completely around the shadow body. Now imagine that the gold and silver one sphere contracts to form a pale gold and silver one aura filter surrounding and permeating the dark sun iron core crystal sphere, while leaving the silver sanctum Akasha capsule secured around the shadow body. So imagine the gold and silver one sphere contracting to form a pale gold and silver one aura filter surrounding and permeating the dark sun, while leaving the silver sanctum Akasha capsule secured around the shadow body. Begin to transmute the miasmic content of the shadow body by toning out loud 6 times the sacred secret song, gold and silver one Nodus name, Ra Ma'a.
Ra, Ra,
We'll do that one more time. It was difficult to tell you to do that and combine the visual. Now we'll do it a second, once more, with the sounding of the secret song. Imagine the beautiful pale gold and silver one rays emerge from the gold and silver one aura filter surrounding the dark sun, spreading throughout the dark charcoal grey silhouette of the shadow body. When critical mass miasm saturation is reached, the gold and silver one rays will automatically contract back into the aura filter around the dark sun implant. At that point, you will imagine that you can now hear with the inner ears or sense the vibrational fluctuations of the released miasmic level transmuting back into primal sound vibration, clearing a miasmic level from the shadow body through direct demanifestation. It would be helpful if you can imagine that you see the shadow body silhouette turning one shade lighter to become a mid-tone charcoal grey. I'll just repeat that before we repeat the tone. While sounding of the secret song, imagine that beautiful pale gold and silver one rays emerge from the gold and silver one aura filter surrounding the dark sun, spreading through the dark charcoal grey silhouette of the shadow body. When critical mass saturation is reached, the gold and silver one rays will automatically contract back into the aura filter around the dark sun implant. You may be able to hear with the inner ears a sense of vibrational fluctuation. If you can, imagine that you see the shadow body silhouette turning one shade lighter. So, are you ready? 6 times. Ra-ma. As you draw your mental attention from the shadow body world, know that the Silver Sanctum Akasha capsule replica will remain bonded within the Density 1 shadow body subshield, creating a barrier of protection and healing around and within the Density 1 shadow body. The gold and silver 1 aura filter on the dark sun implant will also remain, assisting to automatically transmute and release elemental and figment attachments that are drawn into the Density 1 shadow body by the dark sun Heart of Anubis, 4th Black Heart of Metatron shield implant. Just take a few seconds to close the technique by imagining your shadow body silhouette as one whole shade lighter than it was 10 minutes ago. And when you've done with that, just bring yourself back into the room, comfortably into your body. And when you're ready, come fully back. Sorry, look. All right. The British have some very interesting ways. Some are healthy and some are not. One of them is that they don't take themselves so seriously that they can't take the P1SS in public, and they do frequently. So understand what the remark was. It wasn't what you thought it was. First of all, an acknowledgement, not an apology, but an acknowledgement that we've both been at it since we saw you last night. Between us, we've had about 4 hours sleep. We've got one additional technique through, which Jay is working on with the Secretariat right now. All right. Ash is going hell for leather, finishing off the best you can, both diagram and the remainder of, I think, 2 techniques will be short now. And we're doing everything we can to get them in by this evening's session. Where we are in the program, apart from generating the support material, is not at all too badly, because the IANI contact versus indiscriminate open field contact was covered very adequately yesterday. And the issues of open field contact were explained, I think, very comprehensively. Why contact now? I think we've said enough about that, and everyone should understand by this stage why now. But what is missing, and what will be covered this evening, is more on what the ARC project is. And that ranges, provided we have time, from the technical basis of the anchoring of the pillars in the literal sense of the energetic and technical nature of the arcs and what they are, and whether or not there's time to fit that in is to move through the spectrum from technical objective material to here now our role subjective kind of stuff, because there is an element in the ARC project which is incredibly thought-provoking. It's been referred to once or twice in terms of our being walking portals or stargates. And we have known for some time now that the basis of the land entrustment contracts that people have are the beginning of an attempt to, if you think about EVAC and think about Divine Template, think about yours and think about the life forms around you, those in the earth, on the earth, and above the earth. These things will become, if we're successful in our individual development and ability, we will actually create a piece of Divine Template which is a completely integrated mini-universe. And we will take it through when the time comes. All life forms together, aligned in Divine Blueprint, will become a part of the new future according to our teachings. And the reason for our taking ourselves so seriously, and the reason for the techniques, and the information that is yet to come, is designed to support those who want to assume a leading role, first of themselves and then in relation to the ARC project, will understand that their own personal agreements are those which carry responsibility for being a vehicle for other life forms to pass through them as a portal or as a gate, and ultimately to integrate, as I've already said, very tiny in relation to the whole, tiny parts of the template where there's an entire EVAC of Divine Blueprint that remains on the earth and the piece of it that can go there. So it means minerals, okay? It means plants. It means certain animals. Some of the work that we'll be doing when we go to England has a huge amount to do with the determination of the various kinds of life forms that are, how should I say, organically aligned with where we're going. There are some plants that have been imported elsewhere. There are plants and minerals and other things here that are actually transmitters of chaotic frequency. All right? There are those foodstuffs that presently we regard as being healthful and supportive to us that will be identified as not being. There will be forms of medicines that are considered presently to be supportive to us, but which are not. We don't know what they are yet. If you take a herbal essence, if you take an oil, all of these things, we hope, will be, as it were, segregated into those that can come into alignment and be supportive, and those that are designed not to come into alignment and not to be supportive. There is a huge amount of work to do. Presently, we're talking about something called mahagriculture. Mahagriculture. Yeah, D12 agriculture, right? Perennially self-sustaining. All right? That's what it is. And a major project that we're taking on when we go to England is to actually begin to this undertaking on a pilot basis. There are some technologies that we know that we're going to be shown that relate to the nature and structure of water, which lies beyond the impressions of what you might consider to be pure thought, as they're reflected in the book I referred to when I was talking about Paddy and the way she introduced the power of thought. What is reflected in the water now is merely a reflection of the current limited capacity of the human mind. It does not demonstrate that which can be achieved. And that applies to plants, it applies to minerals, it applies to everything else that we're taking through, including ourselves. So there's a huge amount to achieve yet. And we're only just beginning. We're only dealing with the rim of the material that is going to be coming through increasingly over the next year. Okay? Yeah. Cool stuff. Now, the things that remain that are important, we had wanted, and I sometimes wonder how they perceive us both, or the three of us, really. Sorry, Mac, I didn't mean to include you in that. How they imagine that we can produce all the things that they want us to produce. I mean, there was going to be a set of paintings that are based on resonant alignment imagery. And we thought that we'd achieve that in England. We thought that a part of the trip and the location in Devon near my old home and everything else would be a perfect idyllic setting in which to just go into that space and start to pull together some images, some outline material that would enable the basic sketches to be conducted, at least, because you don't realize that we actually receive information in bits. And it actually kind of assembles in its own curious way, right just before the point that you need it to be assembled. You know, like when we're with you in a situation like this, and I don't remember whether Ashley's ever talked about it, but she has already been trained in it, and I'm actually, I'm an apprentice in this respect, and that is that we are aware we can see the shields, right, that sit above the heads of every one of you. And when we come into a situation like it, right, the primary objective is to match the frequencies that exist across the group and project our own frequencies so we create a huge shield. And that shield operates as a platform. If you want to think of it like it's like balancing ears, hearts and minds, so that when then we start to receive input, incoming, we have a choice in the way that we interpret the delivery. So being an apprentice means that you have to be aware of the shield and hold the shield, or support the shield in its unity, the balance, the range, right, of people's ability and willingness, the kind of way they want to hear material delivered, and so on, the content. On the other hand, you have the incoming, so you've got this kind of thing going on. And yesterday I was, whoa, really, it's kind of a weird thing to do. I mean, when you compare it with, Mark goes, okay, well, look, you're this is on the same point. Your neurological circuits, right, are like in a more innocent form when you come out of dream state and you're beginning to wake up in the mornings, right? So he said, now, all you have to do is to pick up your laptop or a notepad, right, and go, pull up your Maharak shield real quick, because they won't talk to you if you haven't. And they'll give you a, they'll give you one of those. And I forget sometimes, and go, hello? Nothing. Hello? Oi! Oh, right, okay. Now then. It's just, really, they've got such a wonderful sense of humor. It amazes me what they deal with. I was talking to someone last night, and I said, there are what we would call energetic forms of terrorism happening in our Earth. There is conflict occurring in our Earth. And there they are, bless them. They have their consciousness here and here and here and here. They're with us. They're being loving, supportive, encouraging, and amusing, while a part of their consciousness is actually holding a frequency fence that's preventing some dragon, anarchy, or whatever derivative trying to break down their back door. Yeah. But that's said to demonstrate the kind of destination that we're all striving to reach. And they're completely in balance, unflustered, so collected. I go, yeah, man, really. The dogs do that. They're just absolutely wonderful. They just hold it like that. And they're funny with us. They're comprehensive and patient. And we know damn well there's muck in their backyard. And they just hold it. And that's just power management, really. It's just wonderful to know something's possible, right? Because there are some days when and there are some days you wake up in the morning, you're supposed to be taking transmission, and I'm going to do this when I'm not awake yet, And of course, you see, I made a lot of points yesterday about, come on, guys, take yourselves a bit more seriously, right? Do these things. And I'm going to go, we were up late last night. And what's going on is the mind chat, right? It's this little creature that I call my brain that's going, I'm not ready to be a star here. Right? And Ma's going, you're already a star, you stupid boy. Yeah? I mean, just as an example, I mean, this thing called the brain and this chaotic stuff that is coming in through our shields all the time, it just runs, you know? And, I mean, it's got to be so real just to acknowledge that it happens over and over and over and over again in every day that we live right now. And if you can get a relationship with this that is lighthearted, that is fun without being loose, real slack, without being unserious, because come on, I mean, there's so many po-faced new ages on the planet, right? Oh, give me a break. You know, if that's what's being spiritual is, you know, I quit. Yeah, absolutely. That was seconded. That was funnier than my remark, too, actually. So, anyway, what am I telling you? We're pretty much there where we need to be as far as the schedule is concerned. The imagery thing, in terms of physical object, just couldn't get produced. There's not been time to do it. There just isn't time to get everything done the way that we think it should be done. But it will be before too long. The Weishou's training program, the Gatekeeper's training program, more on the art project, will be covered before we're done. There is a question of ordinations of level 3s, and really, right now, I just don't know where we're going to fit it in. But if we can, we will, because we're real willing, you know, even though we're starting to walk backwards in our heads. Now, the sort of outline for the afternoon is we're going to work until we've done on this session. We've got a new technique to play with when we've done with some talking. We will break and have dinner and reconvene around about 8, with the idea that we'll go on till 11:30. Then we'll have a baggage break, because we've got to get our bags completely sorted, labelled, and out the door by midnight. And then we'll reconvene and just, you know, go on until we all fall asleep. You know, we're up for it. I mean, we don't want to leave anything undone that we can, you know, just, okay. All right. Now.
Cookies and coffee. Yeah, we'll need coffee.
Can we get some intravenous feed set up? You know, like, you go straight in there, you know, and why worry about a cup? Okay. You know, don't let's waste time. Now then, it's interesting. I don't know what's really going on here, and we'll try and find out. The structure of the afternoon will be that, not because I say so or Ash says so or anybody's made any comment, but the Guardians want us to run through some protocol issues again. There is something in here that's not being found. You know, there's some degree of connection with this whole idea of taking responsibility for yourself, not in a boring way, but in a way where you get used to the idea that there is thing running through you, right, that we call the shadow, and this area of yourself, this body of potential, which is your connection, you are plugged in, right, to the primal life force currents, to the various things we've been discussing. And to really, I suppose, to encourage you to utilize that as an asset and to try and bang away at it until you really make some kind of connection inside yourself where you find the resolve to make this part of your daily life, because everyone knows on our side that it's going to quicken the process. It will complement and accelerate the effects of the techniques, because what you're doing is pulling. The techniques are pushing and you're pulling it. You could think of it in terms of running a lasso. Do you call it lasso? A rope? Okay, you could almost think of it symbolically as saying, I'm going to lasso my Christos self, I'm going to pull. Right? And by doing that, by having that kind of idea, your version of the idea, what you're going to do is you're going to pull on the characteristics of Christ consciousness in a real way. Because what it means is to, as I was talking yesterday, as you unplug through the techniques, bits of the apati, you want to have your field full of frequency, right? Because that frequency wants to flow in the vacancies you create by pulling out the receivers that are actually connected with the chaotic stuff. And in an instant, you want to have that frequency available. You facilitate it by trying to remember to bear in mind continuously that you have this chat going on that you call your brain. You have this way of addressing the world currently that is called reasoning right out of school. You have this thing that you call thought that is more about feeling. Okay? And thought, incidentally, energetically expressed, is love in many different ways. Love is healing. Love is energy. Love is what you call consciousness. Love is what you call thought. Love is what you call DNA activation. Because everything is energy. And what you're trying to do is to shift yourself from a relationship with one set of chaotic frequency, which, if you want to use common language, is holding you back, and you want to increase your relationship with more primal life force current, which will move you forward. Right. Now, the reason for working on this conscious awareness of what you're doing, thinking, and reacting on this kind of, oh my God, somebody's been bad to me, you know? You got to get in there. You got to find a way of intercepting it. Now, the thing that I didn't have time to deal with yesterday was the thing I was referring to as the mentor, not the mentor you know as in Kathara, but the mentor that Ashana, before we ever met, had been introduced to the notion that there was a relationship that could facilitate the shift. And I was shown the same thing. It's easy for me to talk about it from my perspective because it happened. You know, there was a thing occurring when I was having to deal with a lot of the fallout of the kind of spiritual thrust that I was feeling that I couldn't really understand very well, but I knew I had to go with it. There was no choice about that, and it affected things in the deepest way imaginable, which I don't need to go through again. Now, what it amounts to is this, really. The elements between your physically incarnate self and your higher self have open conduits, as well as this crazy stuff in the shields. So there's about a third of you, at least, that's got that flow. You have that option to invoke higher consciousness as a means of overriding the effect of the chaotic stuff, okay? That's clear enough. And what that leads us to say is that in any given moment, you actually, all of you, know what the higher choice, higher action, higher emotional and mental expression is in any situation that faces you. But what you don't do is to choose to pull that part of your Christ consciousness into the now moment for a whole bunch of reasons, right? You may be engaged so deeply in a game with someone, in a relationship, for instance, where the codependency thing is running so hard at you, that to pull out of that, to begin to express in a slightly more objective form of the higher mind at work, where you recognize what's there, and the very least you do is to hold. You just create space. You do not go into any of this business. You just in whatever fashion strikes you is going to work for you. Just pull yourself in, all right? Now, the mentor is something that you have an agreement with. It's your higher self, really. And when it was shown to me as dramatic, I just knew. I mean, I just became aware of it, of the idea. And I thought, okay, I do need help in this way because I can recognize that there's so much emotional entanglement going on with what was my family and my living circumstances, my changing career, the whole money-related stuff. Every damn button that I had was being pushed by every damn thing in my life. And I couldn't have coped with it. They knew that. So they insinuated the notion, right, of saying, okay, this is where you're going, this is a spiritual path business, yes, there's a higher self, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, how about letting it play a role in your life then, because it wants to help you. Okay then. So I formulated some agreement, and the agreement was simply this, that it and I knew that I wanted to get there, and I didn't want to be mired by the stuff all around me. I didn't understand how to relate to people. I didn't know what to do with my emotions and their emotions. I didn't actually know how to manage myself because the field was just crazy. You know, I could have gone nuts with what I was having to deal with. So I said, yeah, that's fair enough, that's good. Okay, so what I'll do is I agree that whenever I deviate from the track that I know will get me to where I want to go, I give you my unreserved permission to tap me on the shoulder and say, oi, sunshine, missed one. Nothing else. Right? Nothing else. Just to remind me. I needed to have an outrider, and we all do, until we move into this new space that we want to get into, where you do a deal, and you say, please make me aware of the moments when I fall asleep again, and I let these programs run. Okay? And there is no way in the world, because one of the principles is that you've got to get to like yourself. Right? Liking yourself has got two sides. What it does for you, though, is it enables you to connect with the power that is you. Because there isn't anybody on the planet that can tell you you're not anything. You don't have to please anybody but yourself. Now, there's a challenge in doing that,
right? Because it can open the door to a different kind of ego. I'm in my Christ itself. You can't tell me what to do. I'm a Christed being. What are you talking at me for? Misreading intention, misreading the compassion and care of another, misreading the fact that someone's in your life who might have some information to share with you that will find you terribly, terribly useful. But because you don't agree with me and I'm in my Christ itself, bug off. Now, that is not what we're talking about. So, you do some kind of deal. You have a conversation with your higher self that can be real quick and short. But what you're going to do is you're going to say, I recognize you. I recognize our relationship. I recognize that you represent all of the parts of me that are the higher parts, whereas I have elected to represent a whole number of my parts way beyond just here, and we all want to get together and move this thing forward. And you agree to listen, and you will hear, and your attention will be drawn to a situation in which you have not chosen the highest expression of yourself. You're not to act on it immediately until you grow used to it. But what you do is you reflect honestly with yourself, warts and all, just how little you'd remembered about how you know how to choose the highest, for the highest good, for the collective good. Nothing based on fear, nothing based on neediness, nothing based on the patterns that have told you that you're not lovable or you lack love, and that you assume all these behaviors to suck energy called love off other people. You already have it inside, and you have to grow used to the fact that you do. You have more than enough. You could sling it around to everybody you meet till the cows come home, and that's what the Yarni do. But they do it with a lot more elegance than the expression I used. They don't lack for anything. They don't understand it. The purity and relationship with their understanding with source, energy, the idea of love, is so profound that there are minds amongst us, in this room as well as everywhere else, who still find it the most extraordinary conundrum and paradox that the scale of the events that are occurring now could ever have been allowed. But that is what unconditional love really is. That is what understanding source, the nature, the structure, purpose of source is. It will allow. It will allow right up to the limit that the very structure of creation itself is threatened. And that's the point at which the mechanism that we refer to as source, or expressed as a series of physical laws, kicks in automatically with divine indifference. The laws don't recognize individuals. It doesn't prefer a son or a daughter in any situation. It simply says, this is necessary in order the framework for expression and expansion can occur. Before any being comes into incarnation in any way, shape, or form, on any level you can think of, they all understand and agree that they will honor the rules of creation, the things called universal laws. Every one of us has an agreement at the original point of coming into being the very first time ever and every time since. We know what the laws are, we know how they work, and we understand what the consequences are if we ignore them. The consequences on a cosmic level, as you know, can span periods of time that are incomprehensible to us. Okay? That is the framework that the evolved Eonis, who, if you, some of you don't realize, is another name for Ascended Master. That they live in their earth doesn't mean they're not. There are Ascended Masters here, now, walking around the planet and don't realize that's what they are. Don't think the Eoni are sort of some middle-level anything, because they're not. They're Ascended Masters all. And it's a conundrum that has engaged our minds for a long time. All of us, when Ashana refers to us working as teams before, and some of the consequences and experience that we've all shared. That's what she's referring to. But she has a lovely way of presenting material, which I could never do. Doesn't matter how old I am, I can't do it that way. She's wonderful and very, very good at doing what she does. I, on the other hand, tend to be a bit more direct about things. When I talked to you about the 250 billion year ago beginning of the game and the ultimate destruction at that time of Aramatana, what we were talking about was how at the very, very highest levels, right, the founders too have this relationship with love as an expression, and how Source experiences it. Because the very first step from the creation of the original Trinity, the Manu, Ire, Mane. The next expression immediately next to it has still an engagement with understanding it as Source does. There is a degree, a fraction, the most minute expression of duality in the very first expression of being outside of Source itself that still can't reconcile its issue. So it's no surprise that where we're standing and how we perceive things is a bit of a challenge. All right? And whatever it is that we manage to realize, the 20 or 30% increment in our DNA activation, i.e. expansion of consciousness, if you think about it and figure it out, it actually brings you to the place I was referring to yesterday. Your party receptors would come into balance. You'd have roughly 50-50, right? Organic frequency flowing through you, and you still have a whole chunk of stuff that is definitely ropey. And there are beings and forms that exist in the planes not very far removed from here, so the fourth and the fifth dimension, who are still actually functioning with 40% and 50, 55, 60% of their party processing chaotic frequency. It's what accounts for the behaviors of those that play the fallen game. Right? And the funny thing is that when you get to 11.5, their party is virtually 100% chaotic. Because the root of the evolution is the opposite to us. So, all right, so anybody want to ask a question about the mentor, the creation of mentor and the relationship with mentor? You all comfortable with that? Yes, Alicia.
In Peru, the participants on that trip, on the second Peru trip, we did an exercise where we received first contact with our mentor. And so you're saying that that is the mentor, like, you know, through all of our experiences that we have to call?
Yeah, I'll clarify that. It's a good question. The mentor that both Ashana and I experienced is the higher self. The mentor is not anything outside of your own soul group, effectively, which takes you to your higher self, to the Rishik self, all right? We're not talking about companion or an Iani representative or a GA representative. We're talking about the higher self connection. That's where it has to be, within your own central vertical current, your own family line, the highest expression of it. Okay?
And the name that we were given on the second trip in Peru is that aspect of ourselves. I wasn't clear on that when we were in Peru, when we were given our mentor.
No, you were given a companion name.
All right.
See. Okay. Yeah, the higher self will actually express as a sphere, a bright silver white sphere of frequency. It'll just seem like a ball sitting almost the size of your own skull, at least mine did. And mine just sat out back. And, you know, that's something I forgot to mention, is that I found that there were times when, even in the earlier stages, that I really felt as I was the ball. And I was looking at myself from behind. I was right there, right behind me, in a room with a person, and more aware of me looking at me, being involved and engaged, than I was aware of my physical body being directly engaged with a person on an issue. Now, if that doesn't happen for you that way, I don't want you to do the kind of the thing that crops up and think, oh, I'm doing something wrong, because you're not. I said, I think, I'll just finish this one there. I said, I think, at some point yesterday, and if I didn't, I said it in private conversation, the greatest technique is the one you teach yourself. You create this. You know what the requirement is. You know what the condition is. You know what the objective is. You should all know now because we've been through this enough times. We've spent enough on it. You take the cues, the clues, and the outline ideas, and you formulate your own relationship with it. You formulate your own rules. You have your own experience. You develop your own strength, and you bring the aspects of power in that are most relevant to your life circumstance and the relationships you've got running through your life. I can't tell you what they are. We can't do readings with 85 people just to run you through all of the kind of hot spots, cold spots, and all the rest of it. You know, you do have to make a contribution. This 50-50 thing is real, right? Now, we've given you an outline. I can't think of anything I haven't told you, and all I can do is assure you that if you do what I'm suggesting, you will multiply the effect of the technique short term, real fast. And you'll move into a new space. Now, I'll take Zara's question and I'll go into what I call fallout. Because when you do what we're talking about, you're going to get fallout.
Okay, there's still a little confusion with me with regard to a higher self and the Yanni master. And so maybe this will clarify it. The Yanni master, we have to activate them each day, primarily.
Yeah.
And our higher self is just there, and we just need to telepathically or communicate with them. We don't have to go through a activation.
Yeah. I mean, you've answered your own question, really. But I will explain what you've just done, all right? And I'll put it in a context. Here we are trying to prepare for the biggest tennis match, soccer game, whatever it is you want to think of, and metaphorically, golf, right? The biggest game in our lives, right? We've waited and waited and waited for this. Now, as we come into becoming really, really, really useful, and we drop some of our rubbish, and we pull in more consciousness, which means information in this context, right? We start to become independently useful, where we can actually formulate within ourselves a conscious awareness of the thought action principle. The Yanni support is to allow us to gain access to the knowledge, the wisdom, the techniques, the ways, the protocols, the plan fast, whilst we're developing the integration of all of our higher parts, all the way back to our Rishik self. They know that it will take time, even if we use these techniques, which will accelerate the dickens out of our progress. But in the meanwhile, they're there as our own nearest and dearest members of family, with access to an absolute inordinate amount of information. And that they recognize that one of the products of doing it is to develop a team of people who could perform the tasks that are required. I mean, the evac teams. The people who prepare themselves in all senses, taking the entire being and the whole conscious management thing, where some people will be invited into Inner Earth, and if there's time, to be trained, and will be sent back out. It's very difficult for you to understand what it means to be allowed to go in there. In our current state, none of us are. Because if we were ready, some of us would have been asked already. Because by doing it, we could go in there and experience intense training. The whole kind of mind acceleration stuff, you know, where you just suddenly you're given the whole stuff and you know it and you feel comfortable with it. And you come back out on the surface. This has happened before. And I didn't use the expression cosmic virus just to be funny. That's how it is and that's how it's been. And it's caused utter chaos in some of those race lines. I think in Peru 1, I think it was the Ramyanas that came through, were the race that had suffered such unbelievable pain and destruction through the very thing we're talking about now. They trusted that it was in highest good to allow some humans to go into Inner Earth for the kind of thing that we're talking about. And it just led to utter mayhem. And they, I believe, they swore that they would never do it again. And in Peru, first trip, the kind of intensity with which they made us aware of what it meant to them to open to the group in Peru on the first trip, the significance in every conceivable way, and the love that went with it, that they would one more time trust the human as it was, as we were presenting ourselves in Peru with all our rubbish, all the stuff they could see in our fields. The leap of faith, belief, and commitment that they demonstrated then is typical of some of the issues that are involved, which we basically can't comprehend. The kinds of behaviors that we carry with us now are so wholly inappropriate. And bearing in mind that they deal with this open telepathic sensitivity, we would be assumed into their consciousness. You know, when we talk here about the speakers actually recognizing your shields and working with you on a frequency level to merge those shields and form a union, what do you think happens when you go to Inner Earth and you join with the Yanni? They do that with you. And what's in your shields is transferred into their shields without any conscious awareness. So you drop all the garbage in the collective shield in inner earth. And that begins to transmigrate, just like a virus does in a computer, gradually percolating through. And that's how distortions and genetic mutations actually happen. It'll get into the shields that way if you're dealing with an open society. And if you want to do real damage, you do what Ashana was touching on yesterday. And I avoided it because I didn't want to seem to be cheap and introduce, sort of any kind of innuendo the first time I was speaking to in a workshop. But the manipulations that have occurred around the boy-girl stuff and the utilization of codes and the kind of psychological captivation of our women, particularly, as a means to bring races down, has been part of the plan all the time. And that has been done whilst the question is on the table, and I know Ashana wouldn't go there with it. We both know, and we both have open memory about times in which our women were taken from us in various devious ways. I don't mean from us as individuals, I mean from us as a community, right? And they were actually chained on slabs, and they were treated like pieces of meat to breed clones, fill code combining. So they'd take the higher indigo codes and combine them and create a hybrid, so that through that they would actually develop the plan to access the higher gates. Because they have to do that, otherwise they can't. They can't work with the frequencies that we can. And that's why they're afraid of us, because we can still access the frequencies above them, the wasted acts included, and that's been forgotten in this workshop, by the way. You need to be reminded of it. They are frightened of us, because we have the power to connect with all of primal life force currents and the nature of divine blueprint and override anything they do. But they're moving their game up to a level of sophistication which is bringing it to a close-run thing. But we still have the edge. Anyway, that's off the point. Was that, I strayed from the answer to your question, but was that all right? You just take me away, I mean, ever since they gave me this silver skateboard, you just go, God. Yeah, not jumping any walls yet, no. All right.
Unrelated question?
No.
Well, I was just wondering, what would be the answer to the question from the lady in the back when she says that? Does that mean that nobody who's not, people who are not doing the techniques, even if say like they weren't that distorted, they're generally good people of indigo one but asleep, would they be able to go through the gates? If they were assisted or without assistance or any of that?
Do you know the answer to the question, Liz? You should. Excuse me for saying you should, but I think you ought because you studied the material real well. I know you have.
I know. Well, it's kind of unclear. It was my
No,
understanding.
it's not. Not really. But go on.
Well, it was my understanding that unless you do the techniques and activate your Akasha Macabre, you won't be able to physically go through. And unless you physically take your own body through, you will be able to take some plants, some animals, some people through if the plant or animal or the people are able to get to 4.5 strands.
Right.
But they don't necessarily have to go through on their own. I mean, you might be able to carry people through who are not being able to activate their own Akasha Macabre.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding. But that was before we were introduced to the 2/3 of the shadow and the sword and everything else.
Well, you see, hang on a minute. I'm just going to do a bit of field combining with my technical expert. All right, look, the best way of dealing with this, no, it hasn't changed that much because the principles are the same. Nothing has changed in that respect. Just think about energy, right? Think about frequency alignment. Think about frequency co-resonance. You asked me a question about techniques which are designed to increase your frequency holding capacity, which is the same as DNA activation. With actualization means you've got stable, continuous expansion within your fields to hold and handle that frequency. What's the stellar activation cycle? If it's not the opening of the gates to the highest expression of primal life force currents. We know what happens when your fields aren't ready to handle frequency like you. What does it do to you? So what is there going to be left of you to go through a gate if you can't cope with the frequency? I mean, really, if you try and keep these things, remind yourself, go back to the basics, remind yourself it's all about energy. It's about frequency, it's about alignment. Good things happen when you're aligned with the divine blueprint. That means that you're holding more and more and more and more of primal life force current. That's what alignment is, increasingly so. Right? Deviation, inorganic, chaotic, is its opposite. Right? We are a mutated species right now, trying to move ourselves from where we found ourselves by partly our own hand and by also partly the hand of others. Equal responsibility. They're not at fault. We've played the game too. Is that we're reverse mutating. You know that. I mean, the biogenesis teachings talk about it. And the reason why is because unless we do that, unless we can increase our frequency holding capacity, we can't go through gates. Because frequency and consciousness are the same thing. So if you want to talk about going visit the Ani or inner earth, we might talk about your consciousness being in some kind of balance, your shields being clear enough and clean enough not to pollute them all, but you're still talking energy. There are lots and lots of different words that are used in different contexts that mean the same thing.
Yeah, I'm not asking on behalf of myself. I'm just asking on behalf of the fact that what can I carry with me?
Liz, was I being personal? I hope not. No, I mean, it's a good question. But really, I think that the basics, the beginning principles sometimes get left behind as we get into complex detail. It's easy to forget. And it's a good place to take you back to first principles. It's a hell of a good way of developing independent thinking. Because then you don't transfer entire bodies of information that comes out of somebody's mouth and you plug in your brain and you can't remember it later. But if you can identify the basic principles of an idea, you can form a direct personal relationship with it and you can build up from there. As long as you know the principles you're using are sound and correct, you can create your own relationship with stuff and you can take it beyond the way we teach it. You can take it in a place where you become a teacher that's got the inside confidence, flexibility, and awareness to present the same information in a lot of different ways. The one thing that made me good when I worked in business was because I could figure out how somebody wanted me to hear me say something. I never patronized anybody, and I didn't lie. I wouldn't suck up for a buck, you know? But I would actually find the way of expressing a complex idea to someone. Mostly successfully, at least sufficiently to get to do the thing. Anyway, Lizzie, is that all right?
Well, I gather that if I were to translate
You
it to
gotta.
colloquial American, the answer is no, the person would have
Sweetheart,
no
it's not a matter of opinion. It's a technical matter of fact.
So therefore,
And therefore it can't be personal. It just is.
So the answer is basically pretty much whatever you want to take with you, whatever it is has to generate its own Makaba.
Unless there is a relationship in the soul group where, for example, the question is, what will happen to my children? In almost every case, they will naturally host through the field of a mature adult who's doing this work and doing the techniques automatically, as will pets. I mean, what do you think the plants are going to do? What do you think the lettuces are going to do? Oh my God, I haven't done my spins today. I can't go. What about the radishes? The pet hamster? My God, they're going to leave me behind. I have no more nuts. Oh no. It's all. It's to do with us. It's to do with the thing that we call we. It's to do with having a better idea of how big we are, how big our fields can be, what the capacity to pull frequency is. If you get all your ducks lined up, you understand that you have this stuff to do from technique to self-management, and you go for it, you go, whoa! You become aware of things. You know things. You don't need teachers to lead you around anymore. You become a functional, prospective Iani leader. We need them. And as you do that, you can perform magic, like having people walk straight through your field and go out the other side. And that's just because of the energetic relationships. Not because we're clever, but because we care enough to restore enough of our own shields, our own template, in order to be of service to each other and every other life form that's capable of working with us. But the radishes and the lettuces need us to do that, because they can't. Unfortunately, they're rooted firmly in the ground when they're growing well, unlike us. All right, now, there's one thing to do with this mental relationship that is necessary. I said when the mentor, if you get it going and it taps you on the shoulder, you are making an agreement that you acknowledge that it's done that and you know why it has. The mentor doesn't expect anything from you. But I tell you what you have to do if you want. The mentor won't, probably. The mentor is hoping that you recognize, I talked about the gray area prevarication yesterday, do you remember? Yes. I didn't linger on it very long. But what it leads to say is this. The methodology that I applied to assist myself in the situation that I was facing was to say, Michael, what's going on here? Name it, love or fear. There is no gray.